All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ashish Bhardwaj. I'm a distinguished fellow at the Gateway House, and it's a pleasure to have Professor Sital Kalantry for an interaction and a dialogue on how do we really see this new India-U.S. Trade deal, and how do we look at the evolving role of the Indian diaspora in the United States, and we'll try to find all of this out from Sital today. As a quick introduction, Sital is a lawyer by training. She's a tenured professor at Seattle University's School of Law. She has previously worked for about 7 years in the world of practice,
Yes,
followed by 15 years at Cornell Law School, and she's been with Seattle Law for last 5 years.
correct.
It's good to have you, Sital. Thank you.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Ashish, and thank you to the Gateway House for having me here for this exciting conversation.
So all of you are looking at just the two of us, but we have a small gathering around us. Manjeet is also here. Manjeet is the executive director of Gateway House. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is I was reminded that 20 years ago, Manjeet was awarded the Edward Murrow Press Fellowship, right? It was 20 years ago. And after that, she came back to India, set up Gateway House. The rest is history. It is one of the finest institutions, think tanks working on foreign policy in India. So thank you for hosting this interaction. All right. So one more thing I forgot to mention about Sital's ongoing work. She is the founding faculty director of a very interesting center called Round Glass India Center at Seattle University. And we'll maybe talk a little bit about the work of the center as we go on in this interaction. She also has a podcast called Roots and Roots, or in the American dialect, Roots and Routes. So don't get that wrong. So, Sital, what brings you to Bombay?
Well, I'm actually here as part of a trade delegation from the greater Seattle area to explore opportunities for investments, opportunities for trade. We have a huge port. One of the major ports is in Seattle, as well as world-renowned businesses are founded and located there, like Microsoft, Amazon, Starbucks, Costco, just to name a few. So I'm here with the delegation of elected officials as well as business leaders.
Oh, excellent. Exciting. Exciting. So let's dive straight into hot breaking news, which is on the covers of almost all newspapers around the world. And I'm not talking about the Epstein files. I'm talking about the India-U.S. Trade deal. Some people are calling it the father of all trade deals because the mother of trade deals title has been taken by India EU. And there's a very interesting piece in today's Hindu newspaper written by Anand Goenka of the RPG group, which I highly recommend. It's quite insightful. So I wanted to get your reaction, Seetal, on going from a 50% tariff to 18% tariff. How do you see this play out in terms of the relations between India and the US? And is this going to redefine the relationship the two countries have?
Right. So let me just back up, right? We came here at the part of the trade delegation on Friday. And on Monday, we were hosted by the new US ambassador to the United States, to India from the United States, Mr. Sergio Gore. And in that meeting, he hinted there's going to be a big announcement tonight. So we were a little bit apprehensive coming to India, knowing that the relations are strained. But our group attributes the fortuitous trade deal to being able to be here and our presence. So we're very, very excited that that we were able to join at the moment in India where the trade deal has been announced. I think what this trade deal means is what it signifies is the relationship between India and US, right? Leaving aside the economics, which are very important, but it also signifies that our political relationship, our security relationship, all of these relationships are back online. Mm-hmm. And that's extremely important for global security, for development of India and U.S. Now, in terms of the decrease in tariffs, of course, it's 18% is a kind of universal number. It's very sector specific.
Mhm.
Many sectors, as you know, pharma has already been um, almost was already zero. So I think what it'll do, of course, is very for India industry specific. In
Mhm.
the fish shrimp industry, for example, is struggling. Textiles were struggling, and for us in Washington State, we were it was huge consumers of, in particular, the shrimp. So hopefully those specific sectors will uh, be able to gain more now with this reduction in tariffs.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about some of these sectors. Uh, for all of you, the combined size of the trade between India and the US currently stands at about 132, 133 billion dollars. And India had a reasonable surplus in that. But as Sital is rightly saying, it will all come down to sector specific adjustments because of this lowering of tariff. Immediate beneficiary is textiles, apparels. There are not too many regulations and compliance issues in this industry. Um, and India competes quite intensively with some of its neighbors, Bangladesh, Vietnam, in this particular sector. Uh, Interestingly, the IT sector, because Indian diaspora in the US is sometimes synonymous with IT and tech, uh, it's not really going to get affected, is what I read, because software broadly falls under services,
Right.
and that's not going to be covered under this trade deal now. Uh, but I got a bit worried when I saw that could this deal create a bit of troubles for India in sectors where India is dependent on some other countries? For example, pharmaceuticals. We need APIs for pharmaceuticals. We need rare earth minerals for some of these cutting edge technologies. Can some of the countries really retaliate because of this easing of trade ties between India and US? Because that could be quite debilitating for some industries in India.
It's really hard for me to judge or say what other countries might do vis-a-vis India. Um, what I will say about this trade deal is what's to me a little concerning is that we don't really know the fine print yet,
Hmm.
and a lot of what we hear is people talking about what's in the agreement. As we're both lawyers, we know we want to see the actual documents. We
Mm-hmm.
want to see two signatures on them, and it that's to me. If you want to talk about what's worrying about this, that's worrying to me about it. That um, the, we don't know which specific things have been finalized, which haven't been finalized. Is it an agreement to agree, or is it completely done?
Hmm. Right.
And will it change? Because we were hearing, oh, agriculture is there, then agriculture is not there.
Yeah.
We're going to take Venezuelan oil, but well, Venezuela is at this moment not producing enough oil because it has not been it closed itself off
Yeah.
from the development for a long time.
Right.
So all of that to me is concerning. Is those details being still murky?
So let's wait for the fine
Let's
print
wait for the
to,
fine print.
to come out.
Yeah.
Um, but just continuing with that train of thought, in the tech industry, there is a significant presence of very high quality leading tech companies that are American in the Indian subcontinent, in India particularly. And there was a union budget which was presented a few days ago by the finance minister,
Right.
and a very interesting topic came up, which was data localization, which means that if you are a tech company and you're operating in India, then you're encouraged to store the data within India because of our data protection laws. So that's going to be a very interesting negotiation on how some of these tech companies, which are doing remarkable work in India, they manage and deal with data of Indian users and consumers
Mm.
as part of the trade deal, given the recently enacted privacy laws. That's one. And the second is the agriculture industry is it was waiting to be infused with some new goods and products, which are now hopefully going to come from the US. I remember President Trump's tweet um, mentioned that they're working towards bringing the tariffs and the non-tariff barriers down to zero or almost zero in the agriculture and poultry, livestock sectors. But it could be an interesting negotiation within India because of the nature of our agriculture sector and the people who are dependent or linked with it. Do you want to comment on that?
I'll just comment on the initial point that you said about the tech. I think that we were one of the things that we did in Delhi is we went to the offices of Microsoft and Amazon, and they're very well versed in the Indian regulations. So I think they will comply, and they're aware that they need to. So it's something that they quickly evolve with. But
Mm-hmm.
one other thing in there in terms of tech, the budget combined with the trade deal is the data centers, right? The holiday that's being given for data centers could really encourage some infrastructure investments in India from these tech companies that are
Right.
already here. Like you said, Microsoft,
Yeah.
is already here, and that's with cloud. That's one of the things that they're doing.
Right. Yep. So with that, I want to move towards really the core of the topic, which is the Indian diaspora in the
Yeah.
US, and that's very intricately linked with how American industries have done well in the last few decades. And I want to take a quick detour here and share a very interesting piece of news which came out in the media yesterday. So BITS Pilani is a university that I was associated with. It's a private institution, and they announced that uh, they received the single largest endowment grant yesterday from one of the BITS engineering alumnus. He went to BITS Pilani 55 years ago. And yesterday they announced that $4 million have been given as endowment to BITS Pilani for giving scholarships to students who are enrolling in the university. Why I'm mentioning this is Sheetal knows Mr. Garg and his wife very well, who are responsible for giving this endowment. And I really wanted to acknowledge and appreciate this significant philanthropic initiative by the Garg family. And they're contemplating expanding the philanthropic footprint in India, which gives you a very interesting and a very positive dimension to how Indian Americans are wanting to stay connected with Indian institutions and in India in general. So, how did you? We talked a little bit about this. How did you find out about this news?
I actually found out about this news through our family WhatsApp group, as we all do. They posted it, uncle and auntie, and this was like a week or two ago. They posted that they had given this, and I was actually so proud of them and very impressed because I didn't know of them to have been philanthropic and have been giving gifts of this nature, and I understand it's the single largest. So I think what this just shows is that people who have been successful in the US still credit what India has done for them and Indian institutions. I know he was always proud of Pilani. I knew Pilani from him, that the existence of Pilani, like when I was, very young growing up. So I think that's important that people, and I think that this one example illustrates the larger connection with the diaspora, right? The people in the US who are successful, all of them somehow want to give back, whether it's money, whether it's actually, coming here and doing things, whether it's donations
Mm-hmm.
or technical expertise. And I think the Indian government realizes that, right? They have a division in the Ministry of External Affairs that deals with diaspora issues. They've catered to us by creating an OCI, which is very wonderful. It recognizes us and gives us a special status. So I think that's just that one piece of, one donation represents larger connections between the India and US.
Right. So, Sital, tell me something about the changing patterns of presence of Indian
Yeah.
diaspora in the American society, American economy, American even foreign policy affairs. It's no longer restricted to tech. It's no longer restricted to some disciplines in academia. And you were raised in New York, and then you went to some of the finest institutions in the US and outside the US. How do you see this pattern changing of presence of Indian diaspora in the US over the last few decades?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't think it's talked about enough. It goes to the point about how diverse the Indian diaspora is, and also the evolution of it. So in 1965 is really when the laws, the immigration laws, uh, became more liberal to allow in Indian professionals. And it was mostly professionals, but not just tech, because tech wasn't really booming at that time. It was more like accountants, doctors, those kinds of professionals. And then they stayed, they had children, they brought in their families. It was very much easier to bring in your families at that time. So that's really phase one. I think the phase two started in the 1990s when the H-1B visa was invented.
Mhm.
That's when you saw the uptick of a different kind of Indian immigration,
Mhm.
an Indian immigration where the people grew up in, post 1991 India, so we're already globally connected and global citizens. They came to the US and it was easier for them than my parents, and they came largely in the tech industries. So 71% of H-1Bs go to Indians.
Mhm.
And last year it was about 300%. So take this cumulatively in the last couple of decades, and it adds up. And these are people who are young. They're making a significant amount of money, right? Indians have the highest per capita income of all groups in the US. Um, and then what I've seen over time is that the number of foreign born have increased. So I looked at this data and I saw in 2000, there were about 38% US citizens
Mhm.
who are of Indian descent. Now, I'm sorry, it was 51%, and now it's only 38%. So what this shows is that the incredible growth in the last 20 years related to tech is, and more are now, a larger percentage are foreign born
Mhm.
rather than US born. And that changes dynamics quite a bit because this new group can't vote. This new group is still connected to India, so they're the ones giving back a lot, the remittances.
Mhm.
Um, and we have, the way our immigration law works is that this new group also has a much harder time of getting citizenship than the older group did. The older group, like my father, they were just handing out. He was in India and he said, here's your green card, come to the US. Now there's this weird waiting period of almost 100 years of H-1B visas.
Mhm.
So people are dying before they get citizenship.
Mhm.
And those people don't have a stake in the US as much as the people who are citizens. And they also don't have a voice in the government. And those also, there's this increasing hatred and resentment in the US for vis-a-vis Indian Americans. And it's often seen as we're job takers, right? And because they're so visible now in these high profile tech industries.
Hmm. But the ones that have rights of citizens
Yeah,
uh, and the ones who can potentially
yeah,
contribute to policy
yeah,
making, law
yeah.
making, uh, how talk to me a little bit
Sure.
about their role.
So it's that group, that initial group where they've stayed long enough, they could get citizenship easier. Their kids were born there, so they're citizens. They've been participating in the political life of the U.S.
Mhm.
So we're disproportionately represented at all levels in the state governments and the federal governments. The U.S. Congress has something called a Samosa Caucus of
Mhm.
Indian Americans, which is, amazing. And they're always thinking about India issues, writing about India issues. We're disproportionately represented among CEOs, right,
Mhm.
of major companies. Um, Certainly disproportionately represented as doctors. So I think that, and again, those, perhaps are the group that have been there longer.
What about academia?
Academia as well. I don't know if we're disproportionately represented in academia, but certainly getting in high profile positions for sure.
Okay. So the next question really is, how are these two dilemmas shaping up? And let me explain them. In India, uh, there have been a lot of efforts made by successive governments to retain talent as much as possible, even though it's a very globalized world
Mm,
when it comes to talent and
right.
opportunities and mobility. Um, so, diaspora in the US, as you mentioned, remittances, that's a big economic kind of an injection into the economy. But it's also kind of linked with brain and talent, which we could have retained, but we have temporarily kind of, we don't have access to them at this point. So that's the Indian story. In the US, there is, of course, a lot of conversations going on immigration. And I stumbled on some very interesting statistics that for the first time, the natural growth of population, births in the US, are lower than immigration rates, those who are coming into the country legally or what, legally. So the way to sustain immigration and ways of doing it is also a way to solidify demographic growth and stabilize it. Otherwise, there's going to be a disbalance in the US. So these are two very complex dilemmas that the two countries face. It's slightly different, nothing to do with the trade deal, but it's because the relationship between the two countries are built on people to people exchange. It's based on shared values, shared beliefs. Uh, what do you make of this? Is this something that, is there something that you would like to share about in terms of these two dilemmas which US faces and India faces?
Yeah, and Japan faces. I think that there's definitely people are having fewer children, and that is creating a decrease in population. It's magnified now in the U.S. because almost nobody wants to come across illegally in the border, right? Because they've seen what you're subjected to,
Mhm.
and the enforcement is so amazing that you come in, you're deported. We don't really. We used to let people, uh, which we're supposed to let them file for asylum. We're less able to do that, and so people react. So less people are coming in, and a significant number are being deported, who've been there for decades and decades. So that is going to create a population shortage as it is in the U.S.
Hmm.
It's going to magnify what you're already seeing, the demographic trends of people having fewer children.
Right, right.
But
Um,
India is like the youngest population, apparently. So I think,
it is, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, the last census we had was, I mean, a while back,
yeah,
in 2011, I think, and the largest group of people were in the age group of 5 to 9,
yeah,
which means 15 years ahead, which is now, the largest group of people are in the age group of
mm,
20 to
right,
28 or
yeah,
29. And they are the ones who are going to be tapping opportunities, taking up jobs, wanting jobs, contributing to the economy, to the society in many different ways. Um, but yeah, it's going to be largely a young country
right,
for the next several
yeah,
years, which is why the dilemma, you want to retain as much as possible. You also want to continue
yeah,
offering opportunities to your
right.
people to go and
And
do
I don't think
whatever.
it's a negative thing at this point, for Indians to go to the U.S.
Hmm.
Um, people, the brain drain was something we would talk about decades ago. It's not seen necessarily as a loss,
Hmm.
in part because of this new group of Indians who are in the U.S. have much more connection with India. They're contributing, $35 billion a year to India in remittances, um, just from the US. Globally, it's 135, which is 3 to 4% of India's GDP.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a significant benefit. And to the extent those jobs are not here, they can go there. And the IITs, the amazing engineering schools, are continuing to create talented individuals who are staying here
Hmm.
because they want to or because they can't go here. So I think um, that's how I see it. And I think increasingly it's difficult. It's at least with our new administration for the next 3 years, it's going to be very hard for Indians to go there in the US because the H-1Bs have become costlier. You have to pay $100,000 for an H-1B because the backlog is great. Now, we were briefed by the US embassy in um, in New Delhi, and they were saying that the backlog for H-1Bs is like a year long, primarily because of the new vetting requirements. So these consular officers now have to look at all the social media posts of every applicant. And they said that has, in the past, they could do, you know, uh, like 10 in an hour. Now they do one in an hour, one approval. So that has significantly decreased um,
Hmm.
both that delay plus the expense.
But if the message goes out that visa is linked with whatever you have posted, then it's very easy to go back and delete your posts. Right? I don't know how effective that
Well,
is.
I just want to say, without saying too much, that they are very aware when you delete your posts. So if you
Oh,
have 8,000 followers and no posts, they might wonder. Or if you've locked out your social media, they might wonder. So,
interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, it's enhanced vetting. I guess it has some
I don't know what
merits.
they're vetting for. I haven't read it. I just don't understand. What do you I,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm very curious to know at the macro scale, there is a lot going on. There is the discussions on trade, the fine print of the deal. There are conversations in the diplomatic corridors. I think our external affairs minister is in Washington right now,
Mm.
discussing the details of the deal. How does it pan out really at the micro level, people to people? Is it having any impact, negative or positive, on how people are collaborating with each other? In academia, it's quite common.
Mm-hmm.
How industries are looking at more investments in different sectors of India or different parts of India. How does it percolate down at the micro level, all these conversations?
I think it's probably too soon right now to the deal, obviously, to face an impact. But I think it's more of a psychological
Hmm.
impact, which is okay. We're on again now. We are off again. At that point, it was as if we're broken up,
Hmm.
right? And are we ever going to get back together again? And so you don't necessarily, you don't want to be in that state. And now it feels like okay, we're back, we're on, and hopefully we won't get derailed again. I
Right.
think those and it'll be an impact on everything, right? Trade missions like ours, people who are doing investments in India, because the trade deal is just a general reflection of,
Hmm.
of the relationship.
Right.
And both sides have, apparently had to compromise to get here.
Yes. I mean, there is no other way to
Yeah.
strike
Yeah.
a deal between two major economies.
Right.
You have to compromise a little bit. It's a give
Yeah.
and take.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to talk a little bit about something that you wrote on a few days ago. What's the How do you engage in your own role as a professor in the US, as someone who's leading an India center in a university? How are you engaging with India, and how are your students or
Right.
colleagues
Right.
engaging with India?
Yeah. So in my professional work, I write about India. I'm a law professor, one of the handful that actually focus on India. For whatever reason, in the legal field, in the legal academia, surprisingly, Indian law hasn't been studied, despite the fact that we share the English language, we share a common law tradition from the British, that we are both democracies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my goals, is to try to um, spread that the word, encourage people to other scholars to read and write it. I have written on Indian Supreme Court, gender and human rights on India, and in my work and as the center, which is called the Round Glass India Center, we try to promote understanding about India,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the progress India has made. So we had a panel on the DPI. People don't know how tech advanced India has. We've had a pre-summit, pre-AI summit panel. We do talk about Indian American authors, so we do a bit of culture, politics, foreign relations. It's an interdisciplinary center focusing on contemporary India.
Mm-hmm.
And what's unique about it is that it's not South Asia, because I think that India itself ought to be studied, and we have different um, uh, priorities, different concerns than other countries in South Asia. So we're unpacking that, and we are focusing on contemporary rather than ancient,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to increase people to people connection. So what we do, we've sent 12 professors to spend a week in Bhubaneswar in Kits,
Mm-hmm.
and I bring students to Jindal Global Law School every year. We also others bring students. So we're now bringing professors from India to Seattle University. So we're increasing those connections, because a lot of people in the U.S. don't actually know much about India. They may know about China. Scholars don't know as much about contemporary India.
And why is that? Because this suddenly, all the data that we shared about remittances and the expansion of the diaspora and common language, common
Yeah.
legal tradition, why the lack of awareness, especially when you put it alongside China?
Yeah. Well, foreign policy cadre hasn't been trained on India as much. So there's a fellowship created by the founder of Blackstone, Schwartzman, where he supported, paid for effectively, a new group of foreign policy leaders to learn about India. I mean, learn about China, go study in China. And now we have something like that that's been sponsored by Asha Jatija Mutwani at Jindal. So
Mm-hmm.
I think programs like that are necessary. Getting people to come here. So one of the things our donor, Sunny Singh, is doing with the Round Glass Center, he's bringing U.S. Congress people and their spouses, um, delegations of them. Again,
Mm-hmm.
just learn about India. They don't know about India. See India, right? India has changed. So the perceptions of India maybe 20 years are still 20 years in the past.
Hmm.
And India is also simultaneously living in the present and the past at the same time. So I think those perceptions India can only be understood by being here.
And what about the other part of the puzzle? Uh, of course, bringing students, scholars, parliamentarians, senators to India is very important. But how about is the center doing anything about bringing or hosting students or scholars or industry practitioners from India in
Yes.
the U.S.?
Yes, so we started a program at the Seattle University Law School for law students to study tech law and policy. So 30 students came from India last summer, and we have a very, given that where we're based, we have professors that focus on privacy and internet and tech law. So we taught them that. They built a chatbot to solve problems. They used AI to solve problems in India. So some of them did really, really fantastic and interesting work. I took them to visit Microsoft's headquarters as well as a law firm. So we are doing that, and that is important to do. And I think the U.S. State Department has for a long time been trying to create a program for U.S. students or Indian students to go study in India, but they face a lot of challenges. And I think it's that India is not an extremely easy country to work in if you don't have knowledge. It's also not an easy country to have students come to without the proper guidance. So
Yep.
I think we need people who are knowledgeable about India and the U.S. to help uh, sustain these programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the problem of getting adjusted to a new place before you go there is particularly acute in at the undergraduate level. Um, but I mean, the higher up you climb in the academic study um, hierarchy, the dependency on familiarization goes down a
Yeah.
little bit. So perhaps the way to approach this is to look at doctoral level students or fresh PhDs, postdocs. I know you've been one of the Fulbright scholars.
Yes.
You spent some time in
Yeah,
India.
absolutely. And for me, when I came, so I used to come with India, family trips. Grew up here. I speak Hindi fluently, but those interactions were not the same as spending 4 months here. The way I learned about India, I would have never known how it worked, the intricacies, the people, the dynamics. So being a Fulbright scholar was game changing for me, for sure.
Tell us a little bit about the outcome of your research,
Okay.
which you conducted as a Fulbright scholar in India.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to look at was Indian Supreme Court from an empirical perspective, not simply anecdotal. Right. Everyone, the lawyers who work there say this. There's this problem. There's that problem. But we wanted data behind it. So I worked with an economist who is also a professor at Chicago, and my wonderful colleague here at the National Law School in Bangalore, Aparna Chandra, to look at 5,000 cases that we coded at one from 4-year period at the Supreme Court, scraped the data. So this was even before sophisticated AI technologies. And we wrote a book called Court on Trial, a data-driven account of the Indian Supreme Court that came out a couple of years ago in Penguin. And I think we hope to sort of shape the conversation about um, the concerns about the collegium, the concerns about delay, what's really happening, right? The concerns about appointments and the functioning of the court. The court takes a lot of not precedential cases. So doing run of the mill cases and not creating guidance to lower courts.
Mm-hmm.
And people take chance litigation. So everyone talks about delay. Let's speed up the adjudication. But really, I think we should slow it down
Mm-hmm.
in order to stop delay.
Right.
Take cases that are Supreme Court worthy and leave the cases that were resolved by the trial court or by the high courts.
Right.
Let them rest there.
Was this exercise also done in the American context?
Well, so this whole project was started by one of my former colleagues at Cornell, Ted Eisenberg. He is the father of empirical legal studies. So he came up with this idea of let's use quantitative methodologies to study courts. He started in China. I mean, he started in the United States. He's done Taiwan, Israel, and he started this project with me, but untimely passed away. So we moved to get other collaborators. But yes, it
Right.
has been done, and it is continues to be done. These
Right.
empirical studies, but nobody has done it in India. Simply at this level, it's just not a field. Empirical legal studies at law schools yet. It's developing, and there are people doing it,
Mm-hmm.
but not there yet.
Um, I came across a very interesting report written by a professor whose name is Eva Loreng. She's in Central University of Gujarat, and it's a book. I think it's a Routledge book titled "Diaspora and Soft Power," and she focuses on what we are discussing here, the role of Indian diaspora in the U.S., and she's trying to uh, bring some quantitative evidence on the impact of the soft power or engagement of Indian Americans with foreign policy outcomes or economic outcomes. And what she found out was an empirically tested direct link between the exercise of soft power by the Indian American diaspora and these outcomes. And she says that it's all because of people to people willingness to collaborate at an individual level. Uh, this study came out last year, so it's relatively new and very interesting. I wanted to ask you, other than what you're doing with scholars and students and senators as part of your work at the center, what do you think are the ways in which individuals can connect with each other in this? in this world now where there's so much of geopolitical churn, other than the academic partnerships?
So you mean connect India to US
No,
or
individuals in the US, part of the diaspora, and maybe like-minded people in India, how can they connect with each other without taking the conventional routes of institutional MOUs or in
right?
business investment? Uh, will this mostly be cultural, or can it be something a bit more tangible?
I think the two countries are connected by family connections,
Hmm.
right? If you look at all of the elites in India, they have one kid in the US as well, right? And so the fates are tied together
Hmm.
of the countries that way. You know, we want people, Indian Americans want India to succeed because it's their home country. They may have relatives. The U.S. Indians in the U.S. want their kids to be continue to be well settled and succeed. So
Mm-hmm.
I think those family connections are irreplaceable.
Yep.
And as I said, particularly those foreign-born Indians, they come and go. They watch us, Indian cinema. They make phone calls. I mean, there's even data Carnegie Foundation showed about the interactions that the foreign-born have is much greater than the U.S. born or the U.S. citizen. So
Hmm.
you know the grocery store. So it's to me it's like a global diaspora, right? So we watch you know Panchayat on Amazon Prime. You watch Panchayat on Amazon Prime, right? I mean, so and we never used to be able to do that. That shared, uh, even the shared cultural and entertainment
Yep.
opportunities.
That's a very strong bridge. Unbreakable. It will stand the test of time for years to come. Um, so I want to share that a lot of passionate Americans of Indian origin, like Sital, they've been working passionately, consistently for several years on strengthening the ties between the two nations. Um, but I also know of many people who did return for different reasons. One sitting here, she came back and did something phenomenal, to the Gateway House. Um, I also know of a lot of people who came back and started their own ventures, their entrepreneurial ventures. A lot of them set up universities. Ashoka is an example. Partly Jindal, Plaksha, ISB, some of the good institutions in this country were um established by those who decided to come back. Uh, how difficult is this? Does this play on the mind of an American who has roots in India or strong ties with India? How can I engage more, and how can I sustain that engagement? Is that something which a lot of people consider now?
I think it's harder for the people who are US born or raised in the US to
Mm-hmm.
imagine moving here. It's just very different. And then their families are there. They don't want to necessarily be farther apart. But if an opportunity presents itself, like we met in this particular trip, the head of Boeing in South Asia, he's Indian descent, but was born in the US. So that opportunity present, and he worked for Boeing, and this made sense for him to be placed here, and he came here. So
Hmm.
I think those things will happen, but it'll be harder for the U.S. born to move. Yes, those foreign born people who are, I think they have one foot in both countries, right? There's like millions of Indians right now in the U.S. that have a foot here and a foot there.
Hmm.
For them, it's easy, right? They're bicultural. They can live anywhere, but it's harder for
Yeah.
people like me. But I think I can because I've been here. I've come here so frequently, and I'm so comfortable with here. I have friendships here. Um, but I think it's also hard. The way of working here
Hmm.
is different than
Yeah.
in the U.S.
It is. It's unique
Yeah.
to this part of the world. That reminds me, I read in one of your interviews a very interesting, funny story. When you were really young, and in one of your visits from the US to India, which you did alone,
Yeah.
uh, you were almost detained because the passport was lost, not by
Yeah.
you, but
Yeah.
by the carrier. Uh, And it was a very interesting thing that you mentioned to the interviewer. What happened? What time was that?
Yeah. Well, you were very, you did a lot of research, first of all. So thank you for that. Um, I was actually 8 years old. So in, like 1980.
Huh.
And so, not again, not very many Indian parents do this, but because I was raised with by my grandparents for 4 years, I felt close enough to them. So my parents put me on a plane, Air India plane, alone at 8, and handed over my passport to the officials at the in Air India in New York. And so Air India, I arrive in Delhi, or I know it was Mumbai. I arrive in Mumbai, but they left the passport in New York. So the Indian authorities were like, she's an undocumented immigrant. We can't let her out. They literally wouldn't let me out of, and the next flight was 24 hours later at that time. So wait for 24 hours here in the airport. An 8-year-old girl. But my uncles came. They negotiated. They got to put a bond in for me to get released.
Right.
But I don't know. It seems harsh, but now with what the U.S. government is doing to kids, it maybe isn't so harsh. But at that time, I don't think a lot of people were, me with an American accent, an 80-year-old trying to illegally come to the U.S. To India. Is,
And you didn't break into your Hindi or any other Indian language?
I don't even remember. I could have broken into my Hindi. I mean, I could have, but
Okay. Um, well, these are tough immigration rules, and rules
yeah,
work when they are followed.
yeah,
So there's always a downside. So this was the time when you were living in Queens, isn't it?
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
And it's, I don't know how many of you know, but Queens, a county in the New York region of US, is I read it somewhere. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. Is perhaps ethnically and linguistic the most diverse region in the world.
yeah. It's true.
Is that still
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. They say like this train subway line number 7. There are more languages spoken there on that train than that go the districts that the train goes through than anywhere else in maybe the world.
Really?
Yeah,
We
totally.
call it Rajdhani because we also have a lot of people speaking different
Different
languages and
languages. There
dialects
you
here.
go.
Well, this is wonderful. So this was
Thank
a
you.
very, very informative interaction. As I said, there are many, many people who went from India to work in the States, and they have the interest of both nations in their heart, in their professional work, in their mind. And you're certainly one of them. And it will be an honor to host you and to meet you again in your next visit.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for your time.
I appreciate it. It's been
Thanks.
great. I've
Thank you.
enjoyed it so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.